Storytime about the girl who faked assault for attention. So a little background information, I was 15 and it was my sophomore year of high school. So we're gonna call this girl Carly. Well, every week this girl would come in with some sort of bruise or cut on her. Me being a decent human being, I would ask her what happened. Well, every week she would either say that somebody beat her up or she was SA'd by this one guy who took a video of them while they were doing the nasty. But you could completely tell that it was not against her will. Well, everybody would believe her because always believe the victim. Well, the same thing happened again with a different boy. Everybody saw the video, and I'm talking like people from different schools. So it got into a routine of her telling us how she would have to get abortions every month. So fast forward, I head to my first class of the day, which was English. Well, I look over at her because she sits right next to me, and I see a huge bruise on her neck. Like, it looked like somebody had been choking her. Now, her and I weren't in the same friend group, but we were kind of friends. So I leaned over to her and I asked her what happened, and she said the guy who was in the video with her, the most recent video, he SA'd her. So I tell her to come to the bathroom with me before the bell rang. So we go in and I immediately grab a paper towel and put it under some water with some soap, and I go to put it on her neck. And she starts screaming and like ducking and swerving. Well, I ended up swiping her neck with the paper towel. And there is makeup all on this paper towel, and the bruise is just like smudged all over her neck. So I was like, what the hell is wrong with you? She told me not to tell anyone, and that was her way of making friends. Even though this girl had plenty of friends. So when we got back to class, the bruise had a completely different shape. And she changed her story to me beating the shit out of her in the bathroom because she slept with my non-existent boyfriend. 3 years later, she is still doing the same exact shit.
Am I the asshole for not wanting to do Thanksgiving dinner at my parents' without my wife? I, 30 male, feel stupid for even asking. My sister, 29, and my wife, 34 female, did not have the best history. Before we met, my wife was my sister's landlady, and she was renting the room at the back of my wife's house 6 years ago. She got evicted less than 4 months after moving in because my sister did not pay her rent at all. Then, she was taken to court for damages that costed way more than she put down on the security deposit. My sister did end up having to pay, but basically hated my wife for this. We met after this all went down, and I went to go pick up my sister's stuff she left behind that my wife was decent enough to not throw out yet. We started chatting and really hit it off. Started dating. Year and a half later, she got pregnant with our son. Now happily married, but my sister never took it well. We weren't as close before all this, but after becoming a traitor in her eyes, we didn't talk much. She hasn't even met my son, who's 3. My parents are really trying to push us all to have a family Thanksgiving at their place. My sister never wanted to go because I'd be there with my wife, and she didn't want to see me. My parents never pushed it before because they didn't think my sister was being fair, considering the issues she has with my wife were all things she did herself. This year they feel different though, since my sister broke up with her boyfriend of 6 years, and it's the first holiday without him. She, however, doesn't want to see my son or wife, so that's why they're asking if they be left at home. My wife doesn't have any other family, and I don't want her and my son missing out because my sister doesn't want them there. It's not a problem for me to miss out on dinner with my wife, so my sister could have the company, and I just stay home with my own family. My sister is blowing it out of proportion because she wants me there, but I'm being an asshole because she wants the whole family there. Parents are taking her side here because it's been a difficult year losing her boyfriend and job, so she just wants one family dinner for Thanksgiving. I get it. It's been tough for her. I'm just having a hard time seeing how it's selfish or being inconsiderate to not want to exclude my family. Am I the asshole for not wanting a Christmas tree up at my mother-in-law's house on Thanksgiving? The holidays are very special and sensitive for me, 34 female, this year more than ever. My brother and I were recently orphaned, having lost our mother to breast cancer over 20 years ago, and now our father to septicemia in 2020. I'm trying to navigate how I'm going to manage the holidays without my parents, and I'm a new parent myself, so I want to establish some nice family traditions with my son, 1.5, that we will be able to continue. I love this time of year so much. I really want it to be special for my son. I agreed to have Thanksgiving dinner this year at my mother-in-law's house, and my brother, who is traveling 900 miles to visit, is okay with going over there. But as we're confirming the plans, my mother-in-law says I'm putting up my Christmas tree tomorrow, and maybe my son would like to help put up ornaments. This sent me completely over the edge. This is my reasoning. 1. Thanksgiving is one of my favorite holidays, and I would prefer the 2 holidays be clearly split and defined. 2. I want to get a tree of our own and be able to enjoy the awe and wonder of the event with my son for the first time. 3, I can't get the Christmas tree that I would like before Thanksgiving, so I can preempt the situation. 4, Christmas is full of mixed emotions for me. It's also my birthday, so I've always had to manage some feelings of neglect and lack of control. 5, my parents passed right before and right after Christmas. I would have hoped to get through Thanksgiving without being bombarded with all these feelings. I don't know if my brother will have a similar emotional response. 6, putting up a Christmas tree 2 weeks before Thanksgiving is not a long-standing family tradition in my mother-in-law's household. I told my husband that I didn't really want to go to mother-in-law's house for Thanksgiving if there was going to be a Christmas tree up. And instead of putting the time into listening to me and at least trying to understand why, he proceeded to immediately phone her and tell her I refused to come to her house if there was a Christmas tree up. And she said, "That's weird." And he said it was because I wanted to do it first. She's now not going to put up a Christmas tree. I'm not happy. I'm so confused. You just got what you wanted, but okay. So she's now not going to put up a Christmas tree. I'm not happy. He didn't take the time to even attempt to understand my feelings or explain my side of things to her. I don't usually dictate what others do in their homes, but I believe I should be able to have some minor input into the experiences this year at mother-in-law's, especially where my son is involved. My husband thinks I'm selfish for wanting to have the experience of putting up a tree and seeing my son's reaction first. He thinks that I just want to be in conflict with his mother, and I should have just let it go. While I feel he ruined the holiday season for me before it's even begun, he believes that if anyone ruined the holidays, it's me. Now, I don't want to go to her house for Thanksgiving or Christmas or ever. I will because I understood, probably more than most, the value of family. But I'm feeling misunderstood and ganged up on. Am I the asshole? My boyfriend's brother is asking us to break up or he walks out of the family. It's a bit of a long story. I, 21 female, and my boyfriend, 21 male, have been together since we were 17. We have a healthy relationship, and I have a fantastic relationship with his family. I spend every Easter, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and any events in between with his family. His mom and I get along really well, and my boyfriend annoyingly complains about how she calls me more than him. Same with his father, who's been a second father figure to me and always reminds me I'm more like a daughter to him than his son's girlfriend. My boyfriend has an older brother, 24 male, who I also get along with just fine, but he's more kept to himself and I don't know him as well as the rest. His older brother recently got himself a girlfriend, and actually the first time since I've met him, he has had a girlfriend. This Halloween weekend, my boyfriend's parents' anniversary happened and they invited me over, as usual, but also asked the brother to bring his girlfriend over for the first time. His girlfriend is the same age as me, so I was really looking forward to meeting her. That Saturday, I arrived at my boyfriend's parents' place early, as me and his mother had plans to cook a large meal for everyone. That afternoon was mostly just me, my boyfriend, and his parents hanging out. The girlfriend came later in the evening with his brother. Right off the bat, she became overly comfortable with my boyfriend and his father. She said, quote, "I didn't know all the men in your family are so handsome," and gave both men a rather tight and long hug. She then made her way over to his mother, ignoring me completely and saying, quote, "You're so pretty. Watch out though, your husband's on my radar." Immediately, his mother turned to me and whispered, "I have a bad feeling about her." We stayed in the kitchen, but the kitchen looks into the living room, so we saw everything go down. The girlfriend sat on both my boyfriend's and his dad's lap when trying to talk to them, and both men seemed uncomfortable. Soon, my boyfriend joined us in the kitchen and said, "I don't like her." I called her over to taste the pasta. We all like spicy food, but I didn't know if she could handle it. To which she took a bite and said, "It's good. I see why they keep bringing you around." That compliment felt backhanded, and I felt more uneasy with her. We set up the dining table as it was time for dinner. My boyfriend's family usually says grace before the meal and invited the girlfriend to lead today as she was the guest. The girlfriend accepted and happily thanked God for the food and all the members, intentionally leaving me out of the grace. I didn't mind too much, but my boyfriend and his mom looked at me with the "you saw that" look in their eyes. As the dinner moved along, my boyfriend's dad grilled her with questions about her life and this and that, something he did to me as well. She seemed like a decent girl from a decent background. After he was done, he started asking me about the things I was working on and my plans for graduate school. Before I could answer, she interrupted and started talking about her work and how much she hated it. I could tell my boyfriend's dad didn't really want to listen, and he gave dry responses back and then turned back to me and just asked how my family was doing. This trend went on the whole night, where every time I was acknowledged, she would interrupt me. Near the end of dinner, she jokingly said, "Be careful, David," brother's name. "I might just leave you for Blake," my boyfriend's name. I'm at a point where I don't get jealous or annoyed at this type of stuff, so I just went along and said, "Yeah, Blake, remember to invite me to the wedding when it happens." That seemed to be her breaking point, as she started crying and saying she's been trying to embarrass me the entire night. She then went on a ramble about how I'm hogging my boyfriend's family and making her look bad in front of them. Right after dinner, she dragged my boyfriend's brother out of the house with her, and they left for the night. We invited them to stay for the whole weekend. My boyfriend's family apologized to me for having to witness that, and we all chilled down to some drinks and kept the celebration going with them. The next day, my boyfriend's mother got a call from the brother, who seemed extremely pissed off. She put her phone on speaker, so we all heard him talk. He said his girlfriend is really upset with me and his family, how she's now having doubts about him and their relationship. She says that as long as I'm involved in the family, she doesn't think the relationship with him will work out. The brother then began to ask that I break up with my boyfriend so his girlfriend would stop crying and finally have peace with their relationship. My boyfriend denied the request. So did his parents, to which the brother said then, "Either she's out of the family or I am. I don't want to end this relationship over someone who's not related to us in the first place." Since then, no one has been able to get a hold of him, and it's stressing his parents and my boyfriend out. I feel guilty, but also confused on what to do. I don't want to break apart this family, but I love my boyfriend and his parents too. I don't know what to do or how to process any of this.
Am I the asshole for telling my boyfriend not to donate his sperm to his ex? Disclaimer, this is not my story. My boyfriend, 25 male, and I, 26 male, have been together for over 2 years now. Our relationship has been great, happy, and healthy. We recently decided to move in together a few months ago, and everything has been great. A few days ago, he brought up the idea of donating his sperm to his ex, which at first I thought was a joke, but then realized it was something he was actually considering. For some background, my boyfriend came to terms with his sexuality a year before we started dating. Prior to our relationship, he dated his most recent ex for a few years. They broke up when he came out to her, but ended on good terms. Sometime after they broke up, she found out she was a month pregnant. They now have a beautiful 3-year-old boy who I've grown to love. I get to see him when my boyfriend visits him. He told me lately she's been talking about wanting their kid to have another sibling and how she doesn't want them too many years apart. So somehow she's been convincing him to donate his sperm so she can have another baby. She said that it would be better if they are full siblings instead of half siblings, so that's why it has to be his sperm. His mom and ex's family have been encouraging the idea. I know he would like to have more children, but that should be a conversation for me and him to discuss since I'm his current partner. While I know we can't have children by ourselves since we're both males, there are multiple options we can consider when we feel the time is right. Since I've told him not to do it, I think he told his ex. When he went to visit his kid, he told me she wanted him to go alone, so I think she doesn't want me to see their kid anymore. I'm not sure if this is something I should not be involved with, even though I don't like the idea.
Am I the asshole for refusing to babysit our daughter? So I bought my wife 2 tickets to visit her grandma in Italy next week. The other ticket was for our 4-year-old daughter, since I assumed she would be taking her. She says she wants a break from kids on her vacation. I told her that that was unfortunate, since there is no way that our daughter cannot go if she goes, because I have work and I don't want to take time off to babysit our daughter for an entire week. I suggested we have someone else watch her, but we don't know anyone that lives close by who would be willing to watch her. I love my daughter, but I don't want to take a week off to babysit her, so am I the asshole? Am I the asshole for being mad my friend keeps taking my baby name? I'm 21 and I have no kids as of right now, but in the near future I would love to have one. I have a best friend that is 22, she already has 2 kids and is pregnant again. But from the start of our friendship, I have always told her what I would name my kids. Well, with her second one, she liked one of the names that I planned on using, and she named her child it. I didn't know until the day he was born. At first, I was a little bothered, but I got over it because I don't have a child yet, and it's just one name. But now she's planning on using another name of mine for her new baby. It's the same name that I absolutely love. I have always wanted to name my child it, and she knows that. I told her I felt she was wrong, and she says I'm being petty. It's just a name. I can pick something else, and that I don't have any kids yet, so why am I even mad? I just stopped talking to her completely. A week later, she texted me and said that I'm blowing it out of proportion, and it wasn't that serious to cut her off over it. I understand it's just a name, so I could be the asshole for that, but it actually has a lot of meaning to me.
Am I the asshole for not letting a girl check my phone to make sure I wasn't taking pictures of her? I'm at the gym today and I'm walking towards an empty squat rack. Right in front of me is another girl doing squats. While walking up, I briefly noticed that her leggings are see-through, and when she bends down in her squats, you can easily tell she's not wearing underwear. That's not my business, that's her choice, but it made me uncomfortable to take a rack that was kind of behind her. I had been waiting my entire gym session for one of these racks to open up, and this was my last lift before leaving, so I went ahead and took it. I went through my workout as normal. After every set, I check my phone for 5 to 20 seconds. I track every single set for every single lift in a spreadsheet to note how much I lifted and for how many reps. Sometimes I need to remind myself what I did last week to make sure I'm progressing. Sometimes I'm checking the time or changing a song on Spotify. Tonight specifically, there was a very important basketball game being played, so I wanted to keep up with the score, so I used my phone a lot at the gym. I finished up my third set when the girl turns around, walks up to me with her phone up yelling, "What the F are you doing? Effing perv, stop taking pictures of me." I'm caught completely off guard, but I explained that I'm just taking notes on what I'm lifting and that I'm not paying attention to her at all. She's being extra loud so other people are looking at me, plus she's recording me, and she demands I go through my pics and videos to show her what I was recording and I delete the ones I took of her. I tried to again explain I didn't record anything of her at all. She's yelling that if I have nothing to hide, I should have no problem showing her, so I insist on going to the gym management. Once at the front, we both explain our stories. The normal gym attendee asks me if I'm willing to show her, a neutral third party, my phone. She also says if I have nothing to hide, it's not a big deal and we can squash it right now. I refuse. I have my own uncensored pics in there plus those of my girlfriend. I'm not gonna let anyone force me to show them for some BS. I do show her my spreadsheet, which shows it's been revised over 15 times in the past 50 minutes, so that proves what I was using my phone for. That was received well, but they still expected me to prove my innocence. I told them they needed to review the cameras. Apparently only the manager has access to them, so I was told he'd call me before the end of the night. My girlfriend tells me I should have just let them go through my phone because she doesn't mind, and it would have cleared this all up. But I do mind. I get that someone wouldn't want someone taking pics of them, but violating my privacy to prove I wasn't taking pics of you crosses a line for me. Later that night, the manager called. He checked the footage. He couldn't see what was on my screen, but he said it looked like I had my phone pointed towards the ground right in front of me the whole time. In his opinion, it wasn't high enough to even take a picture of her and never angled it in her direction. Apparently, I was gonna get banned from the gym if the cameras didn't absolve me. And also, I'm not the first person that has been accused before by this girl, but she legit had a creeper before, so I kinda understand where she was coming from. Am I the asshole for not letting my best friend have her wedding on my property after being uninvited? One of my 29-year-old male best friend Carla, 31-year-old female, is getting married soon. It's only meant to be a small backyard type of wedding, but they've been planning it for a few months now, and originally it was supposed to be on my property. They wanted it because it's private, has lots of open space for their reception, a nice view, and the house could be used for them to get ready and stuff. Of course I said yes. She and her fiancé Rick were very happy. The thing is, Carla and I do have a history. We went out on and off in college, but decided to stay friends. Then I met my wife, we got married, and Carla met Rick, and now here they are. Now my wife knows I went out with Carla back in college and she didn't care. Carla still went to our wedding and everything. I never knew if Rick was told or not. It's not my relationship, therefore not my business to say anything, so I never did. Rick found out recently and not in the best way. Not sure how, but from what I heard from friends is that one mutual friend told him no idea why we used to date. Not only that, but apparently Carla said a couple of years ago she was still in love with me when she was already dating Rick. I don't have actual confirmation if that's exactly what he was told. All Carla's told me is that Rick was told about our past and he's angry at her for never saying anything. It became quite the drama and I didn't hear from her over a month until now. She told me they're still going to couples counseling and that the wedding is still on, but Rick requested that I not attend. It sucks, but I totally get why he wouldn't be comfortable. Then I asked the obvious question, where are they going to hold the wedding then? To my surprise, she said they still want to have it at our place. Rick said so too, and in my mind I'm going, he doesn't want the guy who dated his fiancée years ago at the wedding, but still wants the wedding at his house. So my wife and I are expected to just not be at our house that weekend. I told Carla no, they're going to have to find someplace else since we're not going to simply leave our home to them for the weekend. Not only for safety reasons, but it just doesn't make sense. Rick doesn't want me around because he's not comfortable, but is comfortable enough to have their wedding at my house. They really want their wedding here though, and because of that, I've been bugged by not only her and Rick, but also some friends who think I'm being a petty asshole for not letting them have the wedding here anymore. Honestly, I don't think I am. It just doesn't make sense at all to have to leave our own place for a wedding we're no longer welcome to and leaving our home totally vulnerable. Still, I'm being accused of sabotaging their wedding, and Rick believes it's the least I can do after everything. So, am I the asshole?
Am I the asshole for telling my girlfriend to cover up her body when strangers enter the home? My girlfriend comes from a wealthy background and grew up with maids, chefs, and chauffeurs. I was raised in a completely opposite environment and am still adjusting to dating someone like her. When we're not with our parents, we spend a lot of time at one of her apartments. Here's the issue. My girlfriend likes to walk around the home barely wearing anything, which is fine, awesome even, but she does this even when the help are around. For example, last month her family hired a new driver for her and he stopped by the apartment to introduce himself. She was wearing only underwear. Keep in mind, this is the first time that they've met in person. He and I looked awkward and she didn't give a shit. She does this all the time and she doesn't think she needs to wear any decent amount of clothes at all when people that work for her are around. She will casually walk around wearing just a thong or a tiny crop top and nothing else. She even does it with complete strangers.
One time she opened the door for the delivery guy wearing only a see-through gown. You could see everything. I talked to her about it and she was utterly confused as to why I felt uncomfortable. She laughed at me and told me to stop being a jealous baby, and she said I'm being unreasonable. We had another discussion about this yesterday, and I told her she probably wouldn't feel comfortable if I did the same. She said she doesn't do it in front of actual people, i.e. people that don't work for her.
I told my girlfriend recently that she's pretentious. My girlfriend Anna is 26 and I'm 35. We've been together for almost 5 years now, and this is something that's always bothered me, but I never said anything until recently. Anna's smart and doesn't need to prove it to anyone, but she always seems to go out of her way to do stereotypically smart things. Like, for example, she does the New York Times crossword and Sudoku every day. She can get into trashy reality TV and action movies and stuff, but when I look at her Netflix profile, it's mostly highbrow, artsy, and foreign type movies and TV shows. She also knows a lot of random things about classical music, art, and literature, even though she was a STEM major, and I'm pretty sure she only looks that stuff up so that she can seem more educated and cultured. Over the weekend, my aunt and uncle were visiting from out of town, and my uncle, a college English teacher, kept commenting on what a great book collection we had and asked me what my favorites were. I haven't really read anything off the shelves. I mainly read my tablet and I'm not into classics now that I'm out of high school, and I just mentioned that they were Anna's mostly. Anyway, at dinner he started talking about some book with Anna, and I made a joke along the lines of, don't grill her too hard, she just has a bunch of pretentious books so people know she's smart. And both Anna, my uncle, and aunt got mad at me and told me that I was being rude. But I was just being honest, and Anna should know that she does come across as pretentious. Am I the asshole for telling my girlfriend that she's pretentious? I'm 32 and I've been married to my husband, 39, for 4 years. I work a full-time job while he does a 3 times a week night shift. We have a 2-year-old and I'm 6 months pregnant. My husband has a large family, and on every Christmas they gather at his father's house. My father-in-law passed away a year ago, and this year my husband decided as the man of the family to host Christmas at our house. Unbeknownst to me, he sent out invitations for a 5-day Christmas celebration to his entire family, which are about 26 members in total. I found out by accident and I was too shocked to react. I confronted him on it and he said I shouldn't be surprised and just get used to it because after his father's death, he's now the family's head and all major family events will be held in our house and in his presence. I freaked out and said no, this is wrong, and he should have talked to me first before sending out any invitations to his family, knowing I have other commitments like work and taking care of the house and our son. He said we'll manage if I took time off of work, but that means more workload later and it would take away from my maternity leave. I demanded he cancel the invitations, but he refused, saying over my dead body, and then walked out. I ended up sending a mass text to everyone who received an invitation explaining that we will not be hosting Christmas this year. He found out and went off on me, calling my behavior outrageously appalling, and said that I broke his word to his family and made him look small and with no authority. I, in a very strict tone, replied that I didn't sign up to host a celebration and accommodate 26 people while pregnant, taking care of a toddler, and working. I don't care if he became the head of the family after his father's death because he means nothing to me. He took offense to that and walked out almost crying. He later talked about how I disrespected his father and him with what I said and demanded a handwritten apology for canceling the event. He also wanted me to apologize for being insensitive towards him and undermining his authority in front of his family, but I said no apology from me in any form. The issue is still up, especially with my mother-in-law giving me a stern talk about how out of line I was for disrespecting my husband's decision regarding the holiday celebration with family. Am I the asshole for refusing to apologize to my husband in writing after I canceled all his family invitations to a Christmas celebration at our house?
Story time about how my husband and my dad got into a fist fight on our wedding day. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I was sending me on Instagram. My dad is in the military, therefore he is super strict. He's never liked any of my boyfriends and especially my fiance. My fiance is a musician, so he sometimes doesn't have a lot of income. So my dad thinks that he's absolutely lazy. I have a really good job and I always end up making a lot more than my fiance. This means that I have to make up for his lack of money. So usually I end up paying for most of the bills and my fiance ends up paying for about 1/3 of our rent. And we do live in a nice fancy apartment. I mean, we've got a pool, a sauna, there's a bunch of amenities, and most of the time my fiance only gives me about $500 towards rent. My dad knows all of these issues, and trust me, it is an issue for me because I want him to be able to provide for me and our babies whenever I get pregnant, but it really irks my dad. But of course, it really bothers my dad. Every time my fiance and I go over to my parents for dinner, my dad is always making comments about how he doesn't earn enough money, and he asks him, like, how are you going to provide for your family? And that's when my fiance and him usually get into a fight. Our wedding day was quickly approaching, so I wanted to keep a distance between my fiance and my dad. Everything was good up until the reception. My now husband and I were saying hello to friends. Out of nowhere, my dad tackles my husband down. That's when all hell breaks loose. So my dad body slams my new husband onto the ground. Then of course, all of my husband's friends come attack my dad and try to pull him off of my husband. By the way, my dad is super strong. Like I said in part 1, he's in the army, so he's built and super strong. My dad and my husband were pummeling each other. They were even kicking each other on our wedding day. Yeah, I'm in my wedding dress crying. Everyone else is going crazy. Luckily, I invited a friend and her boyfriend is a cop. So he went up to my dad, who was clearly the stronger one in the fight, and was able to restrain him. When they were finally separated, my dad started yelling at my husband, calling him a liar and a cheater. And when I heard my dad say that, my stomach dropped. I knew that my dad had my back and that he probably found out something about my husband. My dad grabs my hand and pulls my mom into a separate room. Then he shows me pictures of my husband with another woman in a parking lot. That's when my dad explained to me that he didn't trust my fiance, so he decided to hire a private investigator to follow him around. Remember in part 1, I said that I was paying for almost everything in our relationship? My dad really hated this, and he was convinced that instead instead of going to work, my fiance was spending time with another woman. And guess what? He was right. Of course, my dad felt really bad about causing a whole scene, but that's when he told me that we had to annul the marriage. I honestly didn't know what to do at the time, so I told my dad that I needed to speak to my husband. My friend's boyfriend, the cop, was there the whole time. He took my dad out of the room and then brought in my husband. Of course, my mom stayed in the room with me to have some backup, and we grilled my husband for about 20 minutes. First, he denied everything, but when I showed him the picture that my dad showed me, he said it was just a friend. Of course, my mom and I weren't buying it. That's when he finally confessed that it was his old girlfriend and that they were just saying goodbye for one last time. That's when he showed me all the text messages between him and his ex, and everything was pretty innocent. I asked him why he didn't tell me that he was going to go see his ex, and he told me that he just didn't want any drama with my dad. The cop brought my dad back in the room. I asked him to stay inside while my dad and my husband and I talked. Explained to my dad everything that happened, but he wasn't buying his story. My dad kept saying that we just needed to get a divorce. My husband was crying and begging me to forgive him. Then my dad started attacking him again. Luckily, my friend's boyfriend, who was a cop, was there and was trying to manage the situation. Basically, we called off the entire reception. So $7,000 right down the drain. My husband and I were supposed to leave that night to Greece. I told my parents we should still go on the honeymoon and they agreed. But obviously my dad was really upset about it. But while we were in Greece, I caught my husband texting his ex again. This woman texted him saying that she missed him. Then he told her about the fight he got into with my dad. Then she said that my whole family is crazy and that he shouldn't have married into it. I confronted my husband and he told me that he needed her as a friend and that I just needed to deal with it. Then I told him that I was the one that paid for basically everything in our relationship, including most of our wedding and our honeymoon, and that he needed to be grateful to me and to my family. That's when he said that he would never speak to my family again. That's when I told him that the relationship wasn't gonna work then. Now that we're back home, my parents really want me to get a divorce, but I'm not sure. Obviously, he has feelings for his ex and so does she. But I mean, I still love him. Why should I lose out? My husband is being super distant and barely talks to me. My dad is upset with me too because I haven't gotten a divorce. Should I just file for divorce? What should I do?
I think somebody's tapped into my phone. Like somebody hacked into my iPhone. So I've had an iPhone my whole life. I know what happens when you call somebody, and I know what's not supposed to happen when you call somebody. Well, like 2 weeks ago, I called my boyfriend or whoever. I don't remember exactly who I was calling, but whatever. And while I was waiting for them to pick up, the phone was ringing, but it did not sound like an average, like, dur, dur. Like, it sounded weird. Like, I've never heard that ring before. And then after exactly 4 of those weird rings, my phone just went beep. Then the call failed, and my phone shut off. And this happened 3 times until I eventually just gave up calling whoever I was trying to call. And like an hour later, it was working again. I was like, okay, maybe my phone's just like glitching, whatever. But then yesterday, this is when things started to like click together. Yesterday, I called my sister. When I called her, she was home, and she was home alone, and I know that. And I called her to see what she wanted from Culver's, and the weird ringing happened again. Once again, I was like, maybe it's glitching, whatever. But when she picks up the phone, instead of immediately hearing her voice, I hear a man, like a man on the line, say something in gibberish, like I couldn't understand it, and then he went silent, and then my sister was mid-sentence talking. So it was like that guy cut her off, and then when he ended his line, then I could hear my sister, and she was already mid-sentence. And I had just called her. Like, there was nobody else in the call, to my knowledge, and she was home alone, so it's not like there was somebody else in the room with her. So... if somebody did hack into my phone, I don't know why. I'm not like Kim Kardashian. I don't got no interesting stuff on my phone. So, you know, I'm a little worried, a little sus. But if there is somebody tapped into my phone and you're listening to me right now, get out of my phone. Like, I don't have anything interesting. But I'll keep y'all updated if anything else happens. I'm just a little creeped out.
My boyfriend refuses to divorce his ex unless I pay for it. Is this relationship worth saving? I am a 39-year-old female and my boyfriend is a 33-year-old male. We've been together for 5 years. There are a few things I can't handle and have voiced my opinion on, but I get called crazy or just ignored. Communication for us has been minimal for the past 2 years or so. He is still married to his ex. While he has promised a divorce, he refuses to get one now unless I pay for it. He and I are intimate 3 times a month and only when he wants to. He doesn't compliment or acknowledge any of my social media posts or anything I send directly to him, like pics. What has recently made me upset and is my last straw is that he decided he wanted to take some time off for his birthday. I'm not mad that he wants to go and do something alone for his birthday. I'm more upset that he didn't ask if I was doing anything for him, which I always do, and didn't ask if I wanted to go. I'm mad that he can take time off for his own birthday, but can't take off time for my birthday or our anniversary. The past 2 years, he has done nothing for both my birthday or anniversary. Am I wrong for being mad?
Am I the a-hole for putting a restraining order on a friend? I, 23 female, and George, 22 male, had been friends for a long time as our families have been friends for 3 generations. After having a one-night stand, I gave birth to a baby girl, Visha, and she's now 2 months old. After I got out of the hospital, I took her to meet everyone, and they loved her. George's mother is in a phase where she really wants a granddaughter, and well, she has all grandsons, so she became really attached to her. Well, George has also become attached and rather possessive of my daughter. The problem began when he started calling her his daughter. and would constantly say, "Daddy's here," every time she cried and I told him to stop. And yes, her dad is in her life. We FaceTime and visit him as he lives in a different state. Well, one day while we were on FaceTime, my daughter's dad, Carl, 24 male, asked for a DNA test. It shocked me to say the least. So I asked him why. Turns out ever since my daughter was born, George has been sending texts to Carl saying how Visha wasn't his, that George was the father, and to stay away from his daughter. I saw red. I went to George's house and cussed him out and stopped talking to him. Mind you, my daughter is a month old at this time. Well, George took it upon himself to go to my house while I was at work and tell my mom that I said he could take her. My mom had no idea that I cussed him out and stopped talking to him. So when I came home, I found my mom asleep and my child nowhere to be found. I ran screaming and yelling at my mom as to where my baby was, and she told me George came and got her. I immediately got into my car and went to George's house. He wasn't there. I went to his mom's house and there he was sitting on a couch holding my baby. I grabbed my daughter and told him to stay the hell away from her and to never think about coming near us again. His mom, who was at home at the time, came walking in the door and asked what was going on, and I told her that George took my daughter without my consent, and then went to the police station and filed a police report and a restraining order. His girlfriend, and also the mother of his son, has been harassing me and calling me all types of names, and saying I'm an a-hole for putting her son's dad in jail. So, am I the a-hole for protecting my child? And also, I have never and will never hook up with George. That is disgusting to even think about. And I don't have a problem with his mom. I love her, and always thought of her as a second mom, seeing as we were around them all the time, and we were next door neighbors until they moved. Am I the a-hole for refusing to spend Christmas with my family after my mom introduced herself to my 3-year-old by her first name? My mom and my wife avoid each other if they can. There was never a big incident. My mom isn't a just no mother-in-law, and my wife isn't some horrible daughter-in-law. But if they can get away with not speaking, they don't speak. For a little while, my mom tried to keep her close relationship with me by trying to see me when my wife wasn't there. But I felt weird about that. My life got busy, and more I told my mom that the only times I was available were when my wife would be there, so my mom lost interest in seeing me. In the 4 years I've been married, I've seen my mom a handful of times. It was hard on me for a while, but I feel like, what am I going to do when the two of them just don't want to interact? My mom did send a gift when my 3-year-old was born, and she has met her a couple of times. My mom is always polite when we see her, but obviously there can't be a traditional grandma role when she doesn't want to come around. My wife's family live across the country, so I spend most holidays with my family. My mom isn't the one hosting, and I am not forcing my wife into an uncomfortable situation. My wife genuinely likes a lot of my cousins, and we mostly hang out with them, and my mom hangs out with her husband, sister, and brother-in-law. My daughter has met my mom, but not enough to remember her, and is going through her curious stage. When we all gathered for Thanksgiving, she asked my mom who she was, and my mom gave her first name. She was really nice about it, but it still left a bad taste in my mouth, like she's still her grandmother. And while we aren't close at all, there was never a formal estrangement. I didn't say anything in the moment. My wife suggested it might be a vanity thing, but I don't know. She was never particularly vain. Recently, Christmas plans came up, and I stated that I don't want to go if my mom is there, due to her rejecting my daughter. Now, my whole extended family thinks I'm being dramatic. My wife is actually annoyed, and says I'm being an A for wanting to deprive our daughter of a family holiday, just because my mom is a witch. I just don't feel comfortable, and it's really left a bad taste in my mouth. Am I the a-hole for making my sister leave my house at a family dinner? Plus little update. I'm 21 female, live with my now fiancé 25 male, and we like to have our families come over for dinners or to hang out. My fiancé proposed over the weekend, and we did not tell anyone except my sister 27 and his best friend. We wanted to surprise everyone with the announcement and invited them over for dinner, and my sister knew we would be announcing our engagement. And so, am I the a-hole? Am I the a-hole for telling my daughter she can come to me if she wants hair removal? My 42 female daughter 14 female. It's pretty hairy compared to most girls her age, just like I was at her age. Brown jeans, LMFAO. Recently she mentioned how she had to wear shorts for basketball in school, and she had more leg hair than anyone else there, which made her embarrassed. I went through the same feeling as a kid, so I completely got what she meant. And I knew that she was going to try remove her body hair at some point, and I didn't want her to feel like she had to do it in secret like I did. So I told her that if she wants to remove it, she can tell me we can work something out. But if she doesn't, there's absolutely no pressure to do so. Anyways, my husband, 45 male, found out about this and was enraged, telling me I just made her more insecure about her hair, but I'm gonna turn her into a look-obsessed idiot, his exact words. My reasoning was that she was already insecure about her body hair, and telling her she couldn't remove it would just make her miserable. and she'd end up doing it in secret and probably in an unsafe manner. I'd rather her be comfortable and open with me about it so she doesn't hurt herself or feel anxious that I find out. I went through this whole thing before, and there was a time I plucked out my arm hair individually in secret before a party because I didn't want to look stupid. I don't want her to go through the same thing. My husband claims I'm setting a horrible example to her, and making her seem like that stuff matters more than it does. I'm scared that's what I'm doing. But at the same time, I feel like giving her a choice was the best option. I don't know. Is there something I'm missing or doing wrong?
Is this guy in the wrong for refusing to put his younger brother up for adoption? He starts by saying that he has been married for 2 years and his wife is 4 months pregnant. Well, about a month ago, both of his parents passed away in a car accident. When they passed away in the car accident, they left behind a teenage son who has no one else to turn to. Apparently, the teenage son has no other living relatives except for his older brother. Well, the teenage son's older brother decided to let him come and live with him until he is an adult. The only problem is the older brother's wife thinks that the teenage brother is not their responsibility. She basically wants to only focus on the child she is 4 months pregnant with. The older brother said that the teenage son is staying with them at least until he is an adult. Well, the wife is mad at the older brother and refuses to talk to him unless he puts the teenage son up for adoption. Who do you think is in the wrong?
Am I the asshole for letting my daughter wear an expensive dress to my sister's house? Me, my husband, and our 15-year-old daughter, Georgia, went to my sister's place for lunch this past weekend. Georgia is very bright. She completed her exams early and is now studying more advanced material. She's a big fashionista, a lot more than I was at that age. She loves pretty clothes and outfits, and we're happy to get her as much as we can, provided she behaves well and keeps up the good grades. The lunch with my sister was fairly casual, but Georgia wore her new pink dress. My sister isn't as well off as we are, unfortunately, and she is raising 3 children on her own, and her job isn't a high-paying one. In the past, she asked me if Georgia could tone down her outfits when we come to visit because she doesn't want her kids being upset because they can't afford things like that. I do get my sister's point, but it's not down to me to police what Georgia wears. I've spoken to Georgia about it, but I left the final decision to her. Anyway, so we went for lunch and Georgia ended up getting into an argument when my sister's 13-year-old daughter Lucy asked about the dress and where it was from. Georgia answered that it didn't matter because Lucy couldn't afford it anyway. We told Georgia to shut up as soon as the comment left her lips, but it soon ended up with Georgia and Lucy screaming at each other. My sister made the kids vanilla milkshakes, and Lucy decided to throw hers all over Georgia, ruining the dress. Georgia burst into tears, and to be fair, my sister did bring her a change of clothes. I said that if the dress was permanently ruined, I wanted my sister to reimburse us. My sister has refused and said that it was our responsibility because my daughter wore an expensive dress despite being warned not to. The dress cost a couple of $100 and washing it has failed to completely remove the stain. Frankly, I don't care about my sister's warnings. We can't make Georgia wear what she doesn't want to, and it's not our problem that she can't control her child and stop her from ruining a beautiful dress. So, am I the asshole?